First You Think is a not-for-profit ministry of the First Unitarian Church of Des Moines. Support us at ucdsm.org today.
Does anyone remember the football player William the Refrigerator Perry?
No.
I have a visual aid in case you've forgotten. There he is. He's number 72. Perry was on the defensive line. Stay with me. He was on the defensive line for the historically great 1985 Chicago Bears, the ones of Super Bowl shuffle fame. And at over 300 pounds, he was the biggest man on a football field anyone had ever seen. The only adjective they could give for him was, he looks like a refrigerator. See, back then, football players were much smaller than they are today. I looked it up, and I am a few sandwiches away from 3 of those 1985 Bears. Me. The point is, they are much bigger now. You cannot find an offensive lineman in the NFL today that weighs less than 300 pounds. You see, in these last 40 years, sports nutrition and the way we train young athletes has produced unimaginably stronger and faster and bigger football players. These huge men that sprint at one another with incredible speed directly into one another. The result is predictable. These days, there's an average of 1 out of every plays resulting in a major injury. How could it not, right? If force is mass times acceleration, and you increase mass, and you increase acceleration, you've got a lot of force colliding into one another. You increase a lot of injuries. So to bring it to Aesop's fable, these football players are very, very strong oaks, unimaginably strong. But as a result, they're not particularly resilient. How could they be? Their capacity to resist one another, immovable objects and unstoppable forces, well, that is astounding. But like the oak in Aesop's fable, whenever they meet a strong enough wind, they don't know how to bend, they can only break. And so in their effort to hold the ground by pushing and tackling and defeating the opponent, they often end up on the sideline in crutches. Strong, just not resilient. As we've mentioned already, this month of February, we explore the theme of embodying resilience. What do you think of when I say that word, resilience? For me, it comes to Gumby. From the Latin, inclined to spring back. You can stretch Gumby, he comes back. You can squeeze Gumby, he returns to his shape. Like the reed in Aesop's fable, he can bend in the wind and then return to his position. If we're looking for an athletic parallel to football players, it would probably be yoga teachers, right? Their muscles aren't as big or as powerful as these contemporary NFL players, but they can flex and extend and then spring back into shape. I cannot do that. They can bend without breaking. And so for me, what got interesting was that February's theme of embodying resilience pairs so interestingly with January's theme, practicing resistance. On the face of it, I read these as opposites. Football players resist one another, but yoga teachers bend and stretch. Resistance means pushing back. You can push a strong oak, you just won't get anywhere with it. But resilience is what helps us get through, like a reed that bends and then springs back in the storm. But then I keep reading the news, and I don't know that it's as simple as that. I've been thinking a lot about our siblings up in Minneapolis. And we say that they are resisting ICE, for example. Our colleagues are showing up in force to speak up for love and justice and equity and compassion, and they are being met with tear gas and arrests and terror and executions. So we find ourselves in a language of team love resisting team hate, so to speak. And yes, in some ways they are resisting, but I think they're also embodying a quality of resilience. They are not meeting force with force. They are not football players colliding into one another. Rather, like reeds, they are firmly rooted in their moral values, but they are flexible and limber. You could say that they are resisting resiliently. So as we think about these two words of resistance and resilience, I think we have some experience with them in our own lived experience. Yeah? I suspect that resistance is our default setting. At least that seems that way when a child reaches about 2. They discover the power of the word no. Time to brush your teeth? No. Time to go to bed? No. Little oak saplings learning for the first time how to be immovable. But we grow into it. We live in a culture that thinks of win, lose, me versus you. So you try to beat the other kids at the race on the playground. You try and beat the other team in all of your sports. And it doesn't get much better when you go into adulthood. We're defeating the other political party in the upcoming election. We're trying to win the war on drugs, or the war on terror, or the war on poverty. Even in our hardest, most tender moments, we say that our aunt lost her battle with cancer. Aunt Edna versus cancer. Always the same framework, 2 teams oppositionally playing, one is the winner, one is the loser. Oak thinking. But you live long enough and you realize that you cannot always resist the winds in life, right? Many of us have experienced this, the crack in the storm. Sometimes it feels like everything breaks. I think many of us have been there, lying in pieces in the field, in that place that you find only after every ounce of your resistance has met a gale force wind. Now, you and I might not know what it's like to be an NFL player being carried off the field. But I think we know what it's like when you leave the doctor's office with news you did not see coming, or the meeting with the manager about the new direction the company is going in, or that 2 a.m. call from your sibling, I got news about Dad. In those moments when you break, there's no resistance left to give. This is when you begin your journey of resilience. Falling apart, putting ourselves back together again. The sculptor Paige Bradley thinks about this process a lot, not with trees, but with pottery. She says this: kintsugi is the Japanese art of putting broken pottery pieces back together with gold, built on the idea that in embracing our flaws and imperfections, you can create an even stronger, more beautiful piece of art. It is also a metaphor for resilience, embracing your wounds as part of your path of evolution. Your scars show the path traveled, and you are more beautiful and stronger for having been broken. End quote. Bradley suggests that our scars remind us that we have already fallen apart many times and found a way to spring back, to be resilient. And she is demonstrably right. Look, here you are this morning, back together in what appears to me to be one piece. And I say this because there was a moment in the past when you thought you would never recover. And here you are, resilient. You have sprung back. And yes, there are scars along the side of your bowl, but they're made of gold. Reminders of the wisdom that you would have never chosen to gain, but you've gained all the same. And at the same time, I want to acknowledge that doesn't feel right to talk about our lived experiences the way we talk about Gumby, right? Resilience is not as simple in our lives as springing back. Every golden scar on the bowl is also a reminder that the bowl changed. Eric Greitens was a Rhodes Scholar and then a Navy SEAL, and now a writer about resilience. He suggests that bouncing back is the wrong way to look at resilience. He writes this: life's reality is that we cannot bounce back. We cannot bounce back because we cannot go back in time to the people we used to be. You know there is no bouncing back. There is only moving through. What happens to us becomes a part of us. Resilient people do not bounce back from hard experiences. They find healthy ways to integrate them into their lives. End quote. Whatever it is that you have lived through, and you have, here you are. Whatever it is that knocked you down or broke the tree in half is now a part of you. And yes, you do carry the aches from those experiences, but you also carry the wisdom from them. For it's almost obvious to say it out loud, we are not who we once were. We're different from who we were before the pandemic, before the divorce, before the diagnosis. All of the aches are still there, and I know. But there are also days when you feel like a pile of pottery shards. But I want to say this, it has been my experience that the people who have had their hearts break the most in the past are often the people with the most expansive and beautiful hearts now. That only when an oak truly snaps in half do most people learn how to transform into a beautiful reed. I want to say the hard thing. I want to acknowledge what's on our hearts and minds as a community oriented around compassion. The wind of American fascism right now feels just too strong to bear. I want to hold that grief with you. It was 8 days ago when an ICE agent pushed a woman to the ground, and then ICU nurse Alex Preddy nonviolently intervened. And for that, he was pepper sprayed, tackled, and executed. I know what I saw in those videos. For this, he was labeled a terrorist by our government. And so I want to offer some sort of winning plan, but I cannot stand at this pulpit and preach that if we just play the better game, if we get stronger and faster and stand more firmly, then we will defeat this. That's like waging war on wind. But I can say that what we have seen in the Twin Cities is an extraordinary display of resilience. Street protests have chaplains moving about, offering spiritual and ethical care to people in the midst of this trauma. There are mutual aid networks throughout the Twin Cities that are bringing groceries to families who are hiding in their homes. There are folks picking up and dropping off kids whose parents can't leave their houses. There are clergy and congregants across faith traditions that normally hate one another that are now gathering in unity to offer moral witness to this injustice. Can I linger on this point for a minute? Catholics and Lutherans and Episcopalians waged centuries of war on one another. And they are so in agreement on this. They are in agreement with imams and rabbis and even UUs that this is demonstrably wrong. And I want to say to you that I think it is working. Our president, by the way, our president of the Unitarian Universalist Association, stood in moral witness at the Capitol in D.C. while they were debating how much ICE budget to keep going. Keep in mind, ICE's budget, top 20 military budgets in the world. Okay, so there's 180 countries that don't have the budget that ICE has. She stood in moral witness and was arrested for that. But this resilience is working because the wind aims to knock down oaks. And what it is finding instead in the Twin Cities is an incredibly resilient bed of reeds that will bend but will never break, that are not trying to out-bully bullies, but they are absolutely holding the moral ground. As the civil rights song says, we shall not be moved. In these weeks and months to come, I'm afraid that we're going to be asked to resist more times than anyone would want. More times than it seems our hearts can bear. And it is in these moments of our greatest challenges that I'm here to say, make sure the roots of your reeds are wrapped firmly around your values, around your spiritual and ethical practices. If you were the kind of person that felt human and open-hearted with 5 minutes of meditation last year, this year it's probably 10. If you needed a morning walk to feel like your best self, you probably need an evening walk too now. If you journaled for a page, try 3 pages now. Because we don't live in a world where we can once and forever win the battle of love versus hate. Wars against nouns don't work. Stay open-hearted, stay limber for the storms that come ahead. Because these are the times that my grandchildren will ask me about in 40 years. These are the moments in our history that 100 years from now, 7th graders will be reading about. And we shall not be moved. I think about the song in our hymnal, we're going, and heaven knows where we're going, but we know within, and we will get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. It will be hard. we know. And the road will be muddy and rough, but we'll get there. By our resilience, by the roots that hold us to our values. For in the end, resilience is about choosing to live our lives. It is about choosing to live our lives, to foster the resilience to be fully present and fully human and fully open-hearted for all the days that are ours to live. When we embody resilience, we make the choice to not give wind the power to crack us in half. Do you hear that? To not give ice the power to terrorize your spirit, to not give the onslaught of illegal and immoral laws the power to crack you in half. Embodying resilience is about claiming our right to live, to thrive in this world, knowing that the world will always have storms. I close with this poem by Rosemary Watola Tromer. I want to give you what I could not give you, a world where there is no hurt or grief. Because I cannot give you this, I want to give you the certainty that you can live fully in a world where there is hurt and grief, that you can meet what is most painful and at the same time turn toward what is most beautiful. I want to give you the belief in your resilience, want you to know yourself as a flower that grows more vigorously after it's been cut back. May that be so. May our humanity prevail. Amen.